Y'all know what's going on. It's time for another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Bacon. Welcome to the show, y'all. This one right here about brotherhood. Not the kind you got to sign papers for. Not the kind that show up in bloodlines on no birth certificate. I'm talking about the brotherhood you build from survival. The kind you bleed with, you laugh with, you go hungry with. That's what Dee and Rico had. They came up on the same cracked sidewalks, the same corner store with bulletproof glass and candy that was always stale. Same summer heat sticking to your shirt till you thought you might melt into the pavement. From little boys to teenagers, they was a package deal. You couldn't say Dee without Rico, and you couldn't say Rico without Dee. These boys, they ain't just share stories, they shared shoes. I remember one pair of Jordans between the two of them. Dee rocked them Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Rico had them Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Sunday they polished them up and wore them to church like they belonged in the Bible. They split fries at the Chinese spot, split cigarettes they stole from uncles, split lies they told to stay out past curfew. It wasn't just friendship, it was survival training for two kids the world didn't plan to save. On the court, at the rec center, they was kings. One bent rim, no net, but they made it feel like Madison Square Garden. They'd run twos all day, shirts soaked, laughing like tomorrow wasn't ever going to show up. That's the thing about youth. You think the sun gonna stay up forever, but the streetlights always come on. And then you see what's really out there in the dark. Dee's pops, gone before he hit middle school. Rico's mom's, working nights, dragging herself home in the morning like her bones weighed more than she did. So they raised each other. Big decisions and small ones, they figured it out together. Made each other believe big deals was possible. First hustles was innocent enough. Sweeping up at the barbershop, carrying bags for the old heads, little errands where a few dollars felt like a lottery ticket. But you know how that slope looked. One day it's hold this package for me. Next day it's keep watch by the corner. Next week it's count this money, but don't ask where it came from. Dee was the brain. Could break a job into steps so clean you'd think he was drawing blueprints. Rico was the heart. Could talk anybody into anything, smile wide enough to make no turn into maybe, and maybe turn into yes. Together, they was like a parade nobody scheduled, but everybody watched. People on the block used to nod and say, them boys gonna be something. But nobody ever said if that something was gonna be good or bad. And when you're 17 and hungry, you don't care. Something sound better than nothing. The money got louder. At first it was 20s, then 50s, then hundreds spread across a shoebox like Monopoly cash. They rented cars in cousin names, ran trips out of town, stayed in trap spots where the couch smelled like bad choices. Dee kept the number straight in his head. Rico kept the phones ringing, and that's when the first crack showed. See the block starting to whisper, Dee's the brains, Dee's the reason this thing keep going. Rico heard it, even when no one said it out loud. That's how jealousy sounds. It's a silence that won't stop buzzing in your ear. They still ate together, still laughed, still split bills at the fish spot. But money, it got this demon sitting on it called comparison. And once that demon land on your shoulder, every move your brother make feel like an insult. I've watched this story like a storm cloud moving closer. Already in my own time, I knew what it looked like when loyalty started rotting slow. Nobody sees it till it stinks. Then came the job they thought was going to crown them kings. It's an inside play. Stash house, quiet key, in and out, no noise. And they thought it was genius. Thing about genius on the streets, it don't age well. They go in, clouds low like they nosy. Dee in the alley with the bag, Rico at the door with the key, and some third wheel Rico vouched for. Always beware of the third wheel. The one you don't know by his government name, only by a nickname too silly to be trusted. They make it inside clean. But the stash, it ain't there like they thought. Somebody moved weight earlier, left crumbs, not bread. And worse, camera in the corner blinking red. A cheap fish eye, but enough to change destinies. Panic is a language. Rico started speaking it fluent. "We'll make it back next run." D said, "We out." Now, third wheel got greedy, started snatching anything he could carry. Noise brought neighbors. Neighbors brought cops. And cops don't bring second chances. They scatter. D slid into the alley. Rico fumbled the key, fumbled his comb. Third wheel never made it a block before a spotlight froze him. When the first door closed in interrogation, Rico's mouth opened, and he dressed it up later, called it clarifying. But clarifying is just another word for betrayal. By the time D heard his name floating through the block with that sour tone, he knew the papers were singing a song behind his back. And betrayal always finds its way home. D laid low, hoping the storm would pass. But storms don't pass when thunder already got your name. He walked the block with his hoodie up, nodding short, keeping his circle smaller than ever. But everybody could see the tension trailing him like smoke. And then came the night. Back room of a spot, dim lights, bass leaking through thin walls from next door. D showed up, jaw tight, still half hoping Rico would explain the whispers away. But Rico came with pride sitting heavy on his shoulders and a chip bigger than the table between them. Words ain't never saved a friendship already on fire. "I never flipped on you." That's what Rico claimed. But his eyes blinked too fast. His hands couldn't sit still. D said, "I know what you told him. Papers don't lie." The room tightened. Pride stood between them like a third man. And where pride sits, guns show up. Nobody planned it. Nobody thought that far ahead. But once a piece is on the table, the whole conversation changed. One shot, echo bouncing off 4 dirty walls, Rico on the floor. D staring at his own hands like he didn't recognize the fingerprints anymore. That silence after, heavy. He wanted to pray but didn't know the words. Wanted to scream but the air wasn't his anymore. Sirens always come late, but they always come. Court came next. Court don't care about friendship. Court do math, add charges, subtract excuses, multiply pain, divide years. Judge stamped time on him like a number printed on factory steel. Inside was worse. On the tier, rumors became gospel. D handled Rico. That was the jacket he had to wear. Some called it justice. Some called it curse. Everybody called it something and none of it gave him peace. I saw him first week after chow, walking stiff like his bones was too heavy. He'd sit quiet, stare at nothing, like he was waiting for the floor to give him an answer. Sometimes he'd whisper pieces to me, how their grandma used to braid both their hair out on the porch, switching chairs like it was a family ritual, or how they once split one honey bun 4 ways 'cause hunger hit harder than pride. And then he'd pause, eyes glassy. I never thought I'd be the last person Rico ever saw. Guilt is a roommate in prison. It eats with you, sleeps with you, showers with you. It never asks rent, it just takes space. And D, he had guilt in stereo. One side saying you pulled that trigger. The other side saying, but he betrayed you first. Neither voice gave him peace. He tried to bury himself in routine. Push-ups till his arms shook, laps in the yard, reading books. That felt heavier than the weights, but routine only dulls pain, it don't cure it. Some nights, he sit on his bunk, staring at the peeling paint on the wall. Every crack looked like a map leading somewhere he couldn't follow. That's when he'd tell me stories about them as kids, about the nights they had nothing but a stolen soda and still laughed like kings. He'd smile for half a second, then the smile collapsed, like the memory couldn't hold itself up. Letters started coming, and most went unanswered, but one, Rico's sister. She didn't curse him out. She didn't forgive him either. She just wrote, "I wish you had let that night end different." That one line haunted him worse than the cell door slam. You see, betrayal don't just cut one way. When loyalty dies, everybody bleeds. The block, the family, the friends who got to choose sides. And in here, men watch. They watch how you carry it, whether you wear the guilt or the pride. Some gave him nods like he was a soldier. Others turned their back like he was poison. D never argued. He just walked, head down, trying to outwalk the weight on his back. But weight don't care how far you walk, it rides along. Weeks stacked into months, he started finding scraps of peace. Little thing, helping a young dude fill out a grievance form, sharing commissary with a man who hadn't had a visit in years. It wasn't redemption, but it was movement. And movement in here is survival. I told him once, loyalty ain't magic, it's maintenance. He looked at me like I had two heads. But a week later, he repeated it to somebody else like it was his own. And that's how wisdom works in here. It passes hands like kites. If it keeps a man alive, nobody cares where it started. Months slid by, count after count, like the calendar was stuck on repeat. And then one day, it happened. Rico's mama came through on a visit. Not for D. Nah, she was there for another nephew on a different pod. But prison is small when history is heavy. She walked past the chapel where D was sitting in the back row, trying to look invisible. Their eyes met, no curse words, no spit, no slap, just a look that felt like judgment, grief, and 1,000 unspoken questions. He told me later, Joe, that look cut deeper than the judge ever did. After that, he started writing. Not raps, not letters to people who wouldn't respond, just journals, stacks of yellow pages filled with his own voice. I peeked at one once. He wrote, if I can't fix the room I burned, or maybe I can clean the rooms I still walk through. That line stuck with me. He started tutoring the young dudes who ain't no fractions from fairy tales. Started showing new fish how to keep their name out of gossip. Told them, your rep is a balloon, you poke one hole in it, it's gone. Some laughed, but some listened. Guilt still visited, though. Some nights he'd wake up sweating, whispering Rico's name like he was still right there. Other nights, he sat so still you'd think he was carved into the bunk. But slowly his days began stacking instead of collapsing. The TIA noticed. Even the COS noticed. One of them said, you look different. D just shrugged. But later he told me, Joe, I ain't healed. I'm just trying to stay human. That's the part I want you to hear. This ain't a story of redemption wrapped up neat with a bow. This is a story of a man sitting in concrete, learning that loyalty is like a car. You got to maintain it, neglect it, and one day it breaks down in the middle of the road, and by the time you pull out the gun, it's already too late. So we leave part one here, with D standing on the edge of his sentence, haunted but moving, guilty but still breathing. I told him once, you're not a miracle, you're a mechanic. Fix what you can, piece by piece, and maybe that's the only way forward. This has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and I say peace, y'all.